GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Bitcoin is still maintaining its posture, its consolidation above this long-term ascending trend line that we spoke about yesterday. Obviously, we had the big event yesterday afternoon or evening, depending where you are in the world, FOMC, the Fed holding interest rates at 4.5%, and Jerome Powell really giving not much away in terms of the guidance going forward. Obviously going to be led by the data still. So no real surprises there. Obviously, there's a couple of scenarios that we'll talk about in this video. One is that they might well do a cut in September. I think the odds currently are around about 45% of them doing a cut, 55% that they won't do a cut. So for me, it is hard to see the market selling off significantly into what could potentially be a Fed rate cut in September. Obviously, what that's going to mean is that the data over these next few weeks is going to be of high importance. Obviously, I say a few weeks, it's actually 2 months away until we actually have that next Fed meeting, as there's obviously a recess, a break for August. So a couple of data points, both on the inflation and the jobs numbers before that Fed meeting. So a lot can change until then. But I think the market is holding up fairly well. And like we say, we said yesterday that what I'm expecting is that Bitcoin could come and trap just below this trend line. But as long as that holds on a weekly closing basis, I favor a move higher first over the summer. One probably final push higher into mid to late August, and then probably a correction from there in September. And obviously this falls in line with seasonal weakness for both the stock market and the crypto market around that sort of late August, September timeframe. So Bitcoin is looking fairly good here. If we just go down to the daily, we can actually see how Bitcoin performed yesterday. So you can see putting in a nice daily reversal candle, nice wick down into our support, and a decent green candle so far today. If we actually look at our liquidation heat maps, we can see this is just looking at where people's liquidations are, those people on leverage over the last 24 hours on Bitcoin. And a lot of liquidity is now building up to the sort of short side here, just above price. So this is where traders have their stops placed, and obviously market makers usually like to move to where there is high liquidity and take those stops out. Obviously, over the last couple of days, given the sloppy price action that we saw on Bitcoin, a lot of people were starting to get quite negative, especially coming into August. And as I said yesterday, I think people are potentially starting to get ahead of themselves when it comes to actually positioning for the summer weakness. I think people are probably front running the fact that maybe August and September historically have been quite weak, and they're probably thinking to themselves, well, why take the risk? Why not start to hedge now? Why not start to put some short positions on just in case we see some weakness early going into August? And potentially that's going to give the market some fuel to actually move higher and to spike into August, and potentially the pullback comes later on in August, which is actually my base case scenario right now. And this is everything that I spoke about yesterday on the video. So yeah, things are looking fairly good here. Like I say, there's some liquidity above price, which I think market makers will want to target. This is just looking at the Bitcoin monthly returns. So we can see July is set to close at a pretty positive month. And if we actually look back, we can see, if we just look at these averages down here, we can see that the average for July is usually about 7.8%. So we're above that. August is not so good at around 1.75%. And September, I think September is actually the only month throughout the year that we actually have an average of a negative return. So you can see a lot of red here on these September months. But if we actually look at our post-election years, or should we say post-halving years, which is what we are in right now, that can give us a bit more clarity when it comes to this data. And in 2021, we can see we had a double-digit July and August, followed by a 7% correction in September. And if we look at 2017, obviously the post halving year before that, we can see we had 17%, 65%, so a really, really big August. And obviously, a lot of people are drawing comparisons between 2017 and 2025 because obviously it was Trump's, first full year back in office back then, and he's back in again. And we're seeing the dollar drop, and we're seeing similar policy, tariffs, etc., to his first term. And we can see we actually had a massive, massive August, a 7% pullback, and then we exploded into Q4. Obviously, in 2021 we had an explosive October, and then the market peaked out from there. So what can we expect? Well, I'm actually thinking August could well be green, contrary to what a lot of people are saying, just based on this data that we see right here. Obviously, the stock market seems to be not letting up for anything right now. They're up again, new all-time highs last night after the Fed meeting. And then potentially we see a cool down in September, a bit of a pullback and consolidation before having a big October and maybe continuation into the end of the year in November, December. That is yet to be seen. But I think all of this data bodes fairly well for what I was discussing yesterday, really, which is we probably push on a bit from here. Do we make a new all-time high? Potentially, yes. I do think we can. We can take the liquidity up above 124, 125,000. Obviously, right now we've got a lot sat above 120,000, and then potentially we see that pullback into September and a low in September before a final blow off in October. And obviously that would align with our path here. So let's just go on to the weekly and we'll see that a little bit more clearly. You can see a push higher, maybe a new all-time high, get a few longs trapped in obviously the summer months when it's low liquidity. I wouldn't be surprised if market makers did want to take the liquidity above the recent all-time high. Then we come lower into September, maybe into early October, and then we make that final push higher into Q4. And this right now is what I think is really, really setting up. And similar on the stock market as well. If we just look at the stock market, we can see, I mean, just look at this, the S&P is just not letting up. But as I've spoken about before, I do think that the S&P is due a correction, and that probably happens at some point in August and aligns with a pullback in Bitcoin as well. So this is still my base case. Nothing has changed since the video yesterday. If we take a quick look at Ethereum as well, one altcoin that has obviously got a lot of attention lately, we can see that I'm expecting some consolidation right here. I did talk about yesterday, maybe we actually break through here and then we get the pullback, alongside Bitcoin and stocks in that sort of September area, and then we sort of go on from there. So I'm actually favoring this outcome right now. One final push higher, sweep the liquidity above these highs. Obviously, a lot of people I think have got prematurely short or de-risked a little bit too early for the Q3 slowdown, which typically tends to happen more so in late August, September, as opposed to July, August. So that's what I'm currently looking at on Ethereum. Solana, I talked about. It would be nice if we came into the mid 160s. We actually just front run where I was looking for us to get to, which was yesterday I said around about 165, 166. So yeah, we've actually held our 50-week moving average. That's the red MA here on Solana. And look, I think Solana could definitely play catch up and can run higher. I'll be looking for an initial move up to around about sort of 228, 230. This fib here, which looks like, no, that's an old, ignore that. So if we actually put a Fibonacci retracement here, funnily enough, it comes in around the same sort of area. So it's around about 220. I'd be favoring a move up to about 220, maybe finding some resistance here. Depends how crazy things get over the next month. Potentially we go as high as 250, but I'd be looking at probably something like this happening if I just put on a path here for Solana. It would be a move like this, either up to one of these sort of fib targets, and then probably a pullback into September, early October, and then expansion in Q4. So yeah, push higher, consolidation, pullback, and then we sort of go on again. And maybe that doesn't actually come this low. Maybe by that point, the 50 MA has moved up and we're looking at a more shallow pullback. I have been saying I expect more shallow pullbacks as the bull run starts to get more aggressive. over the next few weeks, we should expect to see more shallow pullbacks, shorter pullbacks, and then more aggressive moves higher. Sui as well is another coin I mentioned yesterday, which I will begin to cover daily now. And yeah, I was looking for maybe a pullback into this zero point 0.5, but it's holding up for now at the 382, and looks like we could get continuation higher. And I am expecting new all-time highs for Sui. Maybe as early as August if the momentum continues strongly and Bitcoin does the same and puts that new all-time high in, which I think there's a high likelihood of. Another one I gave to you yesterday was S. So I talked about S being on a Tom DeMark daily 9. We can actually see, which would be today, we can obviously see that 9 candle printing today as expected. So yeah, I mean, this dip was a good dip to buy if you could get it. I did think potentially we could run down and make the low today at this trend line, which is this underside of this falling wedge, which was actually already broken out from. But for me, this is probably good enough for a sort of pullback and a retest of the lows that we saw a couple of months back. And I do think S is going to play catch up and potentially can target up to sort of 60, 70 cents, maybe north of $1 in a full-on parabolic blow off. So yeah, I like S. The other one I gave yesterday was Near as well. So Near holding up relatively well here, finding some support at this 100-day moving average. At the moment, it's battling with its 200-day moving average. So I do think Near, once it clears these highs, can really get a move on. And like I said yesterday, I mean, looking at Near, its high for this year, just this year, is $9, and we're currently trading below $3. So I'll be very surprised if we don't get back up there, at least to these highs later on this cycle. That's obviously going to be a solid 3x from current prices. And I mean, even if we just got back there and we wicked above and put in a bit of a trap here, then you're going to be able to get a nice, what I believe to be a fairly uh, low risk 3x on your capital, which I think, given the current market cycle for an altcoin, is pretty damn good. So I do like the look of Near. And the other one I talked about yesterday that I gave you was Ton. So Ton starting to show some relative strength. Obviously, we've been able to hold this low from earlier on this year. Back in March is when Ton made its lows, and we're starting to see a bit more attention and chatter around Ton and potentially what's going to happen when its founder, Telegram's founder, Pavel, actually comes out of jail. Potentially that's really going to release Ton. And I guess I said I would give you some meme coin picks yesterday in a video that I will release very, very soon. That will be out very soon. But just for now, if you wanted maybe a little bit of an early preview into what I'm looking at, the largest meme coin on Telegram is Resistance Dog. So this is Redo. You can buy it on KuCoin. You can obviously buy this natively on the Ton blockchain. But if you don't have Ton on chain, if you don't have a Ton wallet, don't worry. You can go to KuCoin and actually buy this one. That's where I've got exposure myself. And look, I mean, I don't have to tell you, I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, the market cap is around about 6 million. It's been as high as, I think it was 60 million. I could be completely wrong. Obviously, I'll cover this more in depth on the meme coin dedicated stream that I do. I'll bring up like the market cap and go through all of the tokenomics of all of the meme coins that I'm looking at. But yeah, as a little early preview, as a little tip for my more dedicated subscribers and followers that aren't just joining to watch, the specific meme video, then this is one that I've started to position into, and I think could really, really run hard, especially if Ton starts to get some traction. So yeah, maybe add this to your watch list. Obviously, it's Redo. It's bottomed out. It's in this sideways consolidation. The chart looks, I mean, great in terms of if you're looking to get in to an asset that is de-risked in the sense that it doesn't look like it's going to go lower. It's already had its decline, and we're starting to see Ton pick up some momentum and turn around. And I think Redo could do very, very well over the next few weeks and next couple of months, especially if we get that expansion into altcoins or the rotation into altcoins that I do think does happen before this cycle is done. I just think there is too much vested interest in altcoins doing well. Just think about it. If we had a bull run and no altcoins outperformed or altcoins just completely flopped, then it would pretty much kill the entire space. There'd be an argument as to why is anyone ever going to buy an altcoin again over buying Bitcoin, all paths lead back to Bitcoin, and people would just, I think, stop using exchanges altogether and say, well, I'm just going to buy Bitcoin. I can do that in my brokerage account. I can just buy an ETF. Obviously, the stock market is performing so well. It's like I'm just going to invest in stocks and the Bitcoin ETF and take my money off the exchanges. And that would obviously be, in a sense of it, the death of the crypto exchange, which I don't think the exchanges are going to let happen. So I do think we are due an alt season at some point. It's not going to come or happen when everybody wants it to. It's obviously not happened so far or as quickly as people have wanted it to, but I do think it does still happen before the end of this cycle. And obviously, as things start to get extended with the stock market, and we see the stock market just keep on ripping to new all-time highs and Bitcoin going to all-time highs, people will naturally start to move down the risk curve to seek the next beta. It's started to happen already in the crypto space. With Ethereum, we've seen rotation start to happen into Ethereum, with Ethereum really starting to take off. And this rotation, for me, this Ethereum move really just confirms that the rotation will still happen. It's just happening obviously a lot later than people want it to, because interest rates have remained higher for longer. And also we've still been doing QT, or the Fed's still been doing QT. And therefore these conditions are less optimal for the more risky assets, shall we say. But that doesn't mean that they can't still run due to, sentiment, people capitulating, giving up on them, and positioning, people getting overly bearish, overly short, people essentially tapping out of investing in these assets. And therefore, when, the people that don't believe in these assets give up, whilst you have the believers that are still buying, once they start to take off, obviously that capital is going to come back into them. People are going to realize, oh, I made a mistake. Actually, I shouldn't have sold. Alt season is going to happen. I'm going to jump back in, and that's what accelerates the move higher. So I still think we will see that. So yeah, just to wrap things up then, Bitcoin looking good here, looking strong, back above 18,500. I think let's see what happens at the open today. But certainly there is liquidity, as we spoke about, just above the price here, just above 120,000 for market makers to go and tap. So I'll be very surprised if we don't tap that before any further downside moves. And look, we had a bit of a trap yesterday. That puts us in a strong position to now, I think, push on higher. And I still favor one more leg higher, at least throughout August, into August. I think August can be a decent month for Bitcoin, as we've just looked at the historical returns, before any potential de-risking into September, and maybe a bit of volatility, a bit of choppiness in September before hopefully some expansion higher in Q4. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you all on the next one. Bye for now.